Coming up today, after watching his wife survive cancer treatment, he was inspired. Meet the man and see the message he hopes will inspire other women facing cancer. Good morning. I'm Jessica Lovell, and welcome to the Morning Medical Update. Chris Handlin watched his wife Heather endure chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery, and then came up with an idea to inspire other women facing breast cancer. And the location could not have been more perfect.
Heather
Handlin lives what some would call an ideal life. She's got 2 great kids, a loving firefighter for a husband. What could go wrong?
I woke up one morning and realized that one of my breast implants had deflated.
Concerned, Heather reached out to a local plastic surgeon.
She said she'd love to help me repair my implant, but she needed me to have a mammogram prior to her being willing to perform surgery on me.
Not even 40 yet, Heather pushed back.
I actually thought it was obnoxious that I needed to have a mammogram because I don't have any breast cancer in my family.
Heather never imagined she'd soon be in the hands of an oncologist.
I'm getting a call from the staff radiologist saying that we needed to schedule a biopsy, that they didn't like what they saw on the mammogram.
She remembers getting the confirmation she had breast cancer and making that call to her husband.
Just called him and I said, "Baby, it's cancer." Sorry.
Next, telling their kids.
We just kind of told them that Mommy was going to be sick for a little bit. How do you tell your kids that you have cancer and explain that to them? And it was kind of a blur at that point.
Until she met her medical oncology team at the University of Kansas Cancer Center. Heather went through painful chemo, radiation, and underwent a double mastectomy. While Heather was going through treatment, Chris found inspiration from those around him.
Members of the fire department, I've been on the fire department 20 years.
That's like a family.
And our church, we just had a lot of help. And I often think, what do people do who don't have a support group and don't have a support network? You know, if you were a single mom, had no money, no friends, no family.
So this tough firefighter turned husband of a breast cancer survivor decided to go big.
The only hard edge we'll tape out will be where the 3-dimensional part goes back.
We purchased the property about 2 years ago.
A building Chris bought for business storage happened to be perfectly placed at the corner of Seneca and Rainbow in Kansas City, Kansas, a road leading away from the cancer center.
I just couldn't believe it. I was like, "Well, you want to do what? You want to put a breast cancer mural up?" He was like, "Oh, I don't want to. We're gonna put a breast cancer mural up. I want everybody coming out of radiation the same way you did to see this mural as they leave."
Chris commissioned a local artist so other women facing cancer can now see they're not alone.
Oh my gosh, probably 12 different ideas. We finally went with Rosie the Riveter kind of a look. That's what Heather ended up liking the most. And we're like, well, when somebody gets radiation, they're going to go right by this, and we can just help one person get through the day.
Its message, a part of the landscape, and now a part of Heather.
There's not very often that I meet another female and I don't ask them when they've had their last mammogram or when they're due for their mammogram.
As for Chris's message,
Say you're saving a set of dishes for a special occasion or a bottle of wine for a special occasion. There's no such thing. Every day is a special occasion.
most certainly is, and we are so glad to have Heather and Chris with us here in studio today. Hey guys, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good to see you both. Dr. Wagner, Jamie Wagner, is also here with us, breast surgical oncologist, also the division chief of breast surgical oncology at the University of Kansas Cancer Center. So Heather, it's been 2 years since your final chemo, is that what I understand?
Just about, yeah.
Last time we spoke, there was no evidence of cancer. Is that still the case?
Yes.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, I think it probably took about 2 years to get back to my old self again, but finally I feel like me again.
Yeah, you said it was just kind of like this slow burn to get back to you, right?
Yep, definitely.
Every day, something different, new challenges. I want to go back to that really important part of this story, and we're going to talk all about this in just a moment, but you were annoyed, simply annoyed that you were asked to get a mammogram at 37 years old. No question that you're thankful that you did, but tell us a little bit about that part of it, because there's other women who are going to experience that, and how did you get through that part?
Well, I think with anything, if your doctor is recommending a routine exam, I think you probably should do it. So, I mean, I'm so thankful that the surgeon that I saw, required it, and that I went through with it, because I think this would be a whole different story had I not had that initial mammogram.
Well, and of course, something happens to your breast implant, you went back to the surgeon. It wasn't, to go seek out, Dr. Wagner and her team, because that was not anywhere on your radar.
Not.
During all of this, you underwent a lot of treatment. Just kind of walk us through your treatment plan. What was it like? What was the good, the bad, the ugly?
So, and I started with a routine biopsy after the mammogram, and then got results to that about a week later from Dr. Wagner's office that what I did have cancer, and then they had me come in. For the type of cancer that I had, I went through chemotherapy first, so I had 5 rounds of chemotherapy, and then after chemo was done, then I had my bilateral mastectomy. After the mastectomy, the cancer was spread far enough that we thought it would be best if I went through radiation. So then I had 20 rounds of radiation.
Pretty rough go.
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
Well, and Chris, I mean, you were far from expecting this experience and this to hit your family. What was it like watching her go through this?
Difficult. She's a real strong woman, but breast cancer's no joke, and it's very difficult. It's real personal, I believe, to women. I mean, it doesn't really mean as much sometimes to men when you talk about breast cancer, because it affects women a lot more, but it's definitely a personal issue, I think, and it was just, she's real strong, but it was difficult. It was real difficult watching her go through it. It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Does that sound about right when you talk to your patients?
Yes.
It's just a lot, because there's so many phases from the diagnosis to even down to the construction. Talk to us a little bit about what it was like when you first met Heather and kind of that strategy to get her back to her.
To herself today.
Yes.
Yes. Really it's that multidisciplinary plan. We talk a lot about that with breast cancer treatment, but truly Heather really embodies the success that can happen when we bring all the right people together. But it's also, it's right size and right order of everything. Breast cancer is more like a family of breast cancers now, with a lot of personality types. So the most important thing was first identifying, as Heather had stated, what was her personality type. And based on that, we knew that she needed chemotherapy. And we have targeted therapies that are involved with that specifically for her, which has truly revolutionized the survival rates for her type of breast cancer, which is great. And in those instances, we want to give that chemotherapy when appropriate before surgery. There's a ton of benefit, as she did experience, of reducing the size of the cancer, helping with the surgical approach. But also then when we remove it at surgery, we can see how well did that chemotherapy attack that and kill the cancer. And based on that, there may be additional targeted therapies that can now be given, continuing at an even higher level to help with survival.
So you have this huge team of support at the Cancer Center.
Yes.
And as you well know, when patients go home, it's so important for them to have some type of support when they're back out in the world getting through this. So Chris, we're going to bring you back in here. And you mentioned it. I mean, what happens when somebody doesn't have that support system around them, whether it be work and church and friends and family? What made that stick out to you so hard?
Well, it was a very difficult process with the support. We had 2 health insurances at the time. We planned for a rainy day, and it was raining. And we have a lot of support. We have a huge family in town, friends and church members, fellow firemen. And I just thought to myself, I kept thinking, this is extremely difficult to go through. What if we didn't have that support network that we were fortunate enough to have?
Yeah,
And that's what really, I'm just real thankful for the support that we have.
Right, and you wanted to find a way to do your part to reach out and give support to women who may not have it or certainly need it in that moment as they're walking away from their treatment. So tell us about this mural, this very special, well, we just think of it just of a box of a building. There it is, just a gray building turned into something really special. Tell us the story.
So Heather had radiation down the street. It's like maybe 2 blocks away from the building that we own, and we thought this would be a good spot for some advertising at first, and then, Heather gets cancer, and I was like, no, this is going to be a spot for hope. And so we just wanted to put a message there for everyone going through radiation, chemo, breast cancer, just hope.
Hope. Yeah, I love that. As a cancer survivor, Heather, how important would that be for you? And now knowing that other women get to see that, just a little glimpse of stay strong. We've got you. We're here for you. You've got us. What does that feel like?
Yeah, I think in talking to other cancer survivors who've gone through the mural, it hits you kind of when you don't expect it. So, I think when you drive by the mural, and like you see that, it just kind of hits your heart hard. You're like, oh, this community cares. Like the cancer center already wraps themselves around you, but then to see that extended outward, to the whole community to wrap themselves around you, like that you're not alone, that we were going through this with you, and that you have support and people love you. And that's, for us, that's what we wanted other people to feel, and that's what I feel every time I drive by that mural.
Dr. Wagner, pretty cool. You didn't see, was this the first time you have seen it, or have you driven by it?
It was the first time I've gotten to see it.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. I honestly, hearing Chris describe it, and when he talked about the hope, it literally gave me chills, because it's the support, but also don't give up on hope, because we could be so successful in this treatment.
I want to talk about mammograms. It is recommended at age 40 to get a mammogram. Heather was 37. What should people be looking for? We're thinking 37, that's too young. It wasn't on her radar. She just wanted to fix, her implant. What should we know about this? Because I got to tell you, you've been on the show, we're not even halfway through October, and I feel like we're already seeing these stories of women under the age of 40. That's concerning.
It is concerning, and it's this fine balance that I think as the breast cancer treating community and recommendations come out for when you should be screening for breast cancer. We have had a lot of young women on the show already in the last couple of weeks, because we want to highlight what we do know about cancer under the age of 40 is they tendency to be more aggressive cancers. So we need to have some awareness, actually heightened awareness, if something is different about your body, something has changed. I speak a lot about just self-awareness, know what's normal, and if it doesn't feel normal, advocate for yourself and have it looked at. But when we look at all of breast cancer, only 5% of breast cancers that are diagnosed every year are in women under 40. But it's the fact that we want to pay special attention to the fact that, as I just mentioned, they tendency to be more aggressive cancers.
So, I always push back on that question, because if we see that percentage rise and rise and rise, do you think then they'll gonna go back to the drawing board and say, maybe we got to go under the age of 40?
Yeah. Our recommendations are routinely reevaluated based on whatever evidence is currently available. Just this past year, based on more recent evidence, the starting age was lowered back down to 40, and we are really promoting annual mammograms, getting that mammogram every year. Thus far, we have not seen the incidence or the number of breast cancers under the age of 40 significantly increase, and that's why we have to take a balance of, risk-benefit ratios. We also know that women have dense breast tissue. Although dense breast tissue is associated with a slighter higher risk of breast cancer, we also have a decreased sensitivity of mammograms, because a cancer shows up as white, dense breast tissue is white, so being able to identify that. So when we stack up all things that we really need to look at, mammograms before the age of 40, we just currently don't recommend. That does not mean that you cannot get breast cancer. I think that's what we're demonstrating. So that's where that self-awareness, knowing what is normal. If somebody tells you, oh, you have lumpy, bumpy breasts, it doesn't, that's fine. They're your lumpy, bumpy breasts, so get familiar with what that is. And if it is outside of that, something new, have it checked out.
Well, and Heather, in your case, you hadn't had a mammogram, so you wouldn't have known if you had dense breast. Have you learned more about what that is? I didn't know about that just until the last few years. So you've been on here talking a lot about it, and now these new recommendations to let patients know if they have it or not. Do you know if you have it or not?
Well, I don't have it. I don't have breasts anymore.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. But did you know ahead of time?
I had one and only one mammogram, because no more boobs. So I'm thankful for that. So I mean, no,
but you wouldn't have known because you hadn't.
I thought I was somewhat familiar with my boobs.
Right.
I liked my boobs. That's why I had breast implants. But that that's also what, led me to getting a mammogram and detecting my cancer. So,
So does somebody with implants have no breast tissue and could they have dense breast tissue anywhere, or is it gone? I mean, tell me a little bit about that. So do you still need to be checking that?
So when you're talking about in an augmentation?
Yeah, so you have breast
Yes.
implants.
So all a breast implant from an augmentation, it's enhancement, right?
Right.
So it can go behind the muscle, it can go right in front of the muscle, what we call subglandular. But in either case, all the breast tissue is still there. There is just an implant to help enhance that form.
Okay, so it's important though for women to still be aware if they have
100%.
dense breasts or not, still be getting their mammograms. So you underwent this double mastectomy, but then found that there was still cancer in the lymph nodes. Is that what I understand? Is that
they
correct?
test the lymph nodes
Okay.
when they do the mastectomy. So, and I did have a small amount of cancer in one of my lymph nodes.
What do you do in that case, Dr. Wagner?
Well, she actually had what we call isolated tumor cells. So
What does that mean?
Yeah, so our pathologists have become so specific that they can count the number of cells under the microscope in a lymph node. So it just by definition is less than 200 cells. But when that is seen after chemotherapy, we do have some heightened awareness. Why is that still there? Because we want that even isolated tumor cells to be gone after chemotherapy. It did not necessitate her having all of her lymph nodes removed, very thankfully, because there's risk associated with that. But the size of the cancer, the extent in her breast, which was fairly extensive, plus that one lymph node having those isolated tumor cells, as a multidisciplinary group, we felt she would really benefit from radiation. So that's where the radiation piece comes in.
And Heather, the reconstruction phase has gone in phases, correct?
Yes.
Not done with it yet.
Not quite done, but definitely working our way there. So,
And Dr.
very
Wagner,
happy.
kind of what's that story look like? And you said it's not a one and done.
It's not one and done. So whenever we talk about mastectomy with reconstruction, it's something that I feel 90% of my job is really, it's in that, especially in the consultation, it's education. Like, what is this process going to look like? So it's an overwhelming consult, I'm sure, but I try to educate as much as possible to let them know that we want to optimize reconstruction by starting the first phase of reconstruction. Surgery allows us to save the skin, the natural envelope of the breast, sometimes even the nipple and areola to also continue to enhance the final reconstruction. There's no other skin on the body like the breast skin, so if we can save that in the natural contour, that really enhances reconstruction. But it is a phased process. It typically is multiple surgeries. It could be as minimum as 2, but it also can be 3, 4, 5. It just depends on what are the end goals, but also what does the treatment look like to treat the cancer, and how within that do we appropriately accomplish reconstruction.
Chris, I want to bring you back in here. What's it like to be the husband of a breast cancer survivor? I mean, you're, like I said, you're kind of pulled into this world that we typically think of as women handling and dealing with. What advice do you have for other partners and men going through what you've gone through?
Well, it's an exclusive club I wish no one would be a part of. I would say just be present, listen more than you talk, do some research, don't do too much research.
Don't go down the Google rabbit hole.
No, listen to your doctors and have faith, whatever that means to you, that things will be okay.
So you put up this gorgeous mural on your business building. What else are you all doing in the community? You've kind of made this your new mission, right? You guys are reaching out and doing other things.
We teamed up with Peace Out Cancer KC. They provide automatic lift chairs for women who are going through cancer, mostly breast cancer. After surgery, a lot of them cannot lay flat, and so Peace Out Cancer KC provides these healing chairs, and we've teamed up with them. We're actually having an event this Friday, block party, for in front of the mural for Peace Out Cancer KC.
Anybody can show up?
Yeah, 5 to 10.
Okay.
Please.
Come to the mural. I love it. It's like a gathering place now.
Yeah, it's a fundraiser, so we're trying to raise some funds.
Great
All
work.
is welcome.
Great work. If you have any questions, be sure to put those in the chat on our YouTube or Facebook. You can tweet us or email the Medical News Network. Info is right there on your screen. Let's get a check on our COVID count from Dr. Dana Hawkinson. Good morning. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Hey.
Yeah, we have some new numbers. We didn't have them yesterday. So we have 14 active inpatients. We do have a little bit of information about those. We have 2 in the ICU, but none of those are on the ventilators. It's a little bit harder to get that information now, Jessica, as we have to pull it manually. The systems in place that we had at the height of the pandemic, we just don't have right now. So, but I can't say that we do have 2 in the ICU and none on the ventilators of those 14 active infections, which is good because we had, I think, up to 20 or 22 active infections. So going down in the hospital, and that's always a good thing.
All right, great. Thank you for that update. I want to ask you about something else. We talked a lot about long COVID and the symptoms that can last for months. A new study suggesting there is something that researchers are labeling what's called long cold.
Yeah.
That's to say symptoms can last for weeks or months after any type of respiratory virus, not necessarily COVID, of course. So why haven't we heard about long colds before? Is this a big deal? Is this something new?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand. It's because we've probably all lived with cold and had colds, since we were born. COVID is brand new, obviously, and so it affected and infected so many different people, so many people around the world. We know that just the impact of the pure numbers is greater. In addition, what this study showed, it was in the UK, and they looked at about 10,000 people. There were unvaccinated people who had gotten COVID, and then there were also people who got other cough and cold viruses. And what they saw was that even after 4 weeks after that initial infection, people were still having symptoms, even if they had colds. Now, the symptoms differed a little bit in the long COVID versus the symptoms that persisted after a typical cold. What they found was that the taste and smell changes were continued to be prevalent, as well as lightheadedness and dizziness in those patients who had COVID. But for the people that had the non-COVID respiratory infection, they still had symptoms 4 weeks later. Those were more like coughing and some GI type symptoms. So they were a little bit different, but they also, they were able to show that even after these normal, typical viral infections, people can have persistent symptoms after a while. Now, the big caveat here, of course, is most people aren't getting moderate or severe disease having to go to the hospital with the typical colds. So that adds a caveat to it, whereas we know with COVID or influenza with severe illness when you're in the hospital, your chance of having those long-term symptoms is greater.
All right, Hawk, thanks so much. Any reporters with us today? Let's get to our community questions. A question for Dr. Wagner. What is different about treating breast cancer in younger women?
Oh, great question. First and foremost, it's as I had mentioned, which is true for all women with breast cancers, we need to understand that personality type. So what is the biology of the tumor to make sure that we're getting the right sequence of local and systemic, or the medication side of breast cancer treatment. We also want to pay attention that could this be familial? Is this something that's getting passed down? Because we know that women that are diagnosed at younger age, in particular at the age of 40, have a higher probability of it being associated with like a genetic mutation, such like as a BRCA mutation. And so we want to make sure that they all get genetic testing, because not only will it help us potentially influence how we want to treat the cancer, it also will help us overall health in maybe identifying future cancers, high-risk screening, prevention opportunities for other cancers.
All right, question for Chris and Heather. What advice do you have when talking to your children about something like this?
Be as truthful as possible. Let them know that things are going to be okay.
Heather?
Yeah, I agree. I think let them know that they're safe and that they're loved, and just let them be a part as much as you think of the process. I feel like that really helped our kids to kind of tag along to certain things.
Well, you're talking about something you don't even have all the answers to, right?
True.
It's just trying to bring some peace about what's to come. So another question, Dr. Wagner. Marcia says, I'm starting to see a lot of buzz around for multi-cancer early detection screening tests. Can you talk about those tests and if they could be useful in early detection of breast cancer recurrence?
Probably a couple of different things. So multi-test screening, we know that at the top there's easy 5 screenable cancers for early detection. And within those early detections, if we can detect cancers early, most of them have a greater than 90% survival. I would actually really commend the NFL. That's really what, the month of October now is around as far as the crucial catch, and that's what they're really focusing on. So when we talk about multi-screening, I think it really falls within in that domain. As far as recurrence, that is just meaning this cancer coming back. And that that might look a little bit different, where we want to talk to the oncologist that is continuing during your survivorship time to really help guide that. Sometimes it is directed towards something that might be found on physical exam. Sometimes it might be staging studies. There's a lot of considerations that we make based on the stage and the type of cancer on what we would need to do to identify a recurrence.
Question, does having breast implants increase your risk of getting breast cancer? That's a question from Leslie. Or does it increase your chance of missing it? Anything on a mammogram?
Two very good questions. First, simple, no, it does not increase your risk as long as it is not a textured implant. We know that textured implants had an association with developing a lymphoma. So it's not breast cancer itself, actually it was a different type of cancer. So it does not increase your risk of developing breast cancer. It actually does not prevent you from getting appropriate screening either. Augmentation is very common with implants for women today, and across the board, great imaging centers have specific protocols for how to take a mammogram when you have an implant in.
Because anybody who has a mammogram, we know it's happening. You're squishing a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think about when you think visualize it.
That's
So
right.
you don't want that to be a deterrent for women to get their mammogram.
Absolutely, yes. Still get your mammogram. Go to a dedicated breast imaging center. They are absolutely going to know what the protocols need to be able to get the right mammogram. We'll do pictures with the implant in and with the implant out, and they'll be able to visualize it very well. You know, the interesting thing is I've actually had a few women that had smaller breasts that sometimes they were challenged with their mammograms, and after they had their implant, because of how it pushed the tissue forward, a very posterior or closer to the chest wall type of cancer was identified. So it just really goes to show that implants are not going to be the deterrent for identifying a breast cancer on a mammogram.
Okay, a couple quick questions. Paul wants to know, why is proton radiation therapy different than other radiation therapies? And I know that's not your lane on the proton therapy side, and people ask a lot about if it's used for breast cancer, and it is in some cases, but what can you tell us?
Right. So you're absolutely right, this is not my lane, and actually just last week we had a great show featuring Dr. Stecklein and going over when do we use proton for breast. Just to kind of put it in real short, I think the thing is proton for breast radiation is in a very select group. It is not for everybody. Sometimes we can actually have more fibrosis as a result. Are there indications? Yes, and in particular, a dedicated breast radiation oncologist will absolutely know that. We have a phenomenal staff of dedicated breast radiation oncologists here who can help with determining if it's right for you.
Well, not every treatment is right for everyone. That's why there are so many different types, and that's all very good news. Not one size fits all, for sure. Okay, I want to get to our takeaways today. And Chris, I'm going to start with you. What do you want folks to just take away from this story, your particular story as a husband, and what you're doing?
Just have hope. You know, we have a good community here at KU Hospital, and we felt like we were in really good hands being here. And I really honestly mean that. And lean on your support network and just have hope. Everything's going to be okay.
You're not alone. Right?
No, you are not.
Heather, what do you want the takeaway from your story to be?
Well, get your mammogram. Get your mammograms. Don't wait. As soon as you turn 40 or sooner, if there's an indication, get your mammograms. I really would love that this story or even our mural would remind somebody, I need to get my mammogram, because you just never know. Like, I really thought I'd be the last person to get breast cancer, and it came knocking at my door. So it can happen to anybody. So get your mammogram.
Great message. You said that you'd say that to women. I bet you do. You
all
bring
the
that
time.
up?
Everybody I meet. Have you had your mammogram?
Just bug
Have
them.
you had your mammogram?
I most certainly have, just about 6 weeks ago. So I got you. I got you. Thank you. Dr. Wagner, what's the big takeaway from this story?
Something very early that Heather had started with is she complimented her plastic surgeon for being adamant that you need to get a mammogram before I take you back to surgery. So anytime women, even if you're under the age of 40, but in any age, if you are having an elective cosmetic breast procedure, whether it's a reduction, a mastectomy, or an implant, you really should be getting a mammogram prior to going to surgery.
I like that you mentioned that really stood out to you, because not is it possible that other doctors might not say that? You want to make sure that if you don't hear those words or that direction,
Yeah,
to be getting
it is possible, or that they're not asking, but they take patients' words for it, that they got it. And not that anybody is lying, but time gets away from all of us in life. We have very busy lives today, and we say, yeah, I just got it 4 months ago, and they think, oh, okay, then you're within the right time frame. But then when you went back and look, well, that 4 months was plus 18. Right? And so we just lose track of time. So really advocate. And if it's not being recommended, ask for it. Mammograms, you don't have to have a referral. You can call, you can schedule online, you can text us to schedule your mammogram anytime.
All right, no excuse.
No excuse.
Get it on the calendar. All right, Dr. Wagner, Heather, Chris, thank you so much. A special episode of the Morning Medical Update airs today at 9:30 on KCTV5 here in Kansas City, and at 9 a.m. in the Topeka area at WIBW. It is the second episode in the 4-part series that we are running. You can go online to watch the first episode and learn more. Visit kucancercenter.org/MMU. Thank you again to all of our guests, and thanks to our viewers for being with us, asking your questions. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 8. More and more people are having dramatic weight loss with medicine or surgery, but there's a downside. I'm Jessica Lovell. On the next Open Mics with Dr. Stites, all that excess skin can lead to infections. We'll look at the skin removal surgery that's becoming more common Wednesday at 8.
Subscribe to our Morning Medical Update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcast. Now everywhere podcasts are available.